It does seem like the media have got the throw her under the bus green light, though, when we're posting things like this. We're slagging her off behind the scenes, we're dropping all the information, and then reminding you of, her attacking the majority of the population of America. When she posted F the Orange Man.
AMC's announcement that it would pull the live-action Snow White adaptation from all of its theaters sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. The film had been positioned as a surefire hit, powered by the legacy of a beloved fairy tale and bolstered by a cast designed to draw a wide audience. But in a move that stunned both fans and analysts, AMC declared it could no longer justify keeping the film on its screens. Ticket sales had collapsed to such a degree that continuing to show the movie meant forfeiting more profitable screen space, rows of empty seats that could have gone to titles with real momentum. The signs had been there for weeks, but few expected such a dramatic collapse.
Crying on that stage.
When am I not crying in public? It's so upsetting.
Why were you crying?
Oh my gosh, I saw we didn't even see. But I saw the logo and I went, that's my name, Snow White's up there.
Not even Disney, with its deep marketing war chest and legacy of theatrical dominance, could steer the film back on course. From public missteps to whispered drama behind the scenes, Snow White seemed cursed from the start. The infamous live TV meltdown, the growing cloud of controversy, and the tension within the cast all fueled a backlash that only grew louder. Disney had marketed this as a bold, modern reimagining of a timeless story, headlined by rising star Rachel Zegler and anchored by Gal Gadot. Instead, everything that could go wrong did, ending with AMC's unprecedented decision to terminate the film's theatrical run before it had a chance to rebound. Industry commentators rushed to explain what went wrong. Some blamed fatigue from Disney's constant modernizations of its classics.
I love what you said about wanting to entertain audiences, critics saying Disney's too woke, but you're just putting out storytelling.
We are. Look, I don't really like the term woke because I think it's an umbrella term that I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means.
Others pointed to Zegler's polarizing public statements and a corporate PR strategy that felt more reactive than strategic. Whatever the true cause, the result was clear. The film had bombed, and the backlash had become so overwhelming that even AMC, long seen as a loyal Disney partner, had to step away. The rapid unraveling of a project once thought to be bulletproof became an instant case study in how fast a film can implode in the current media climate. Joe Rogan broke it all down in a blistering segment on his podcast. To him, AMC's move wasn't just about a bad box office. It marked a cultural turning point. He argued that the meltdown proved the old rules no longer applied. Disney's advantages, massive marketing, global recognition, bankable stars, weren't enough when the public turned against the narrative.
Snow White reviews are in. Snow White, how shall we say? Data points are in, because we now know that it was a flop.
Rogan tracked the timeline leading to disaster, pointing to Zegler's unpredictable interviews, her off-script moments on The View, and her social media commentary, all of which sharply diverged from Disney's usual tight messaging. What should have been a straightforward media appearance turned into a viral implosion, one that no PR team could contain. In Rogan's view, the film might have survived one controversy, but a live meltdown, paired with sweeping changes to a classic story, created a backlash too big to recover from. It hadn't started that way. Rachel Zegler was initially seen as a promising choice, an actress with real vocal talent, a modern sensibility, and a fresh face that could bridge generations. But once early leaks confirmed that key parts of the original story had been drastically rewritten or removed, fans grew uneasy. Gone were iconic scenes, familiar character arcs, and the emotional beats audiences expected.
And you still think it's because you're a good person and everybody else isn't, not because you're missing something, being the forest for the trees. So, I just wanted to let you know how the entire world feels about you and your exceptional take.
Disney's reinvention felt like erasure, and in the middle of growing skepticism, Zegler's public persona became part of the problem. Her comments about the original being dated or creepy, whether misunderstood or not, rubbed audiences the wrong way. Many fans saw her tone as dismissive of the very film they held dear. What began as cautious optimism turned into outright rejection, with social media erupting in outrage. In response, Disney tried to course correct. Zegler was sent on a round of talk shows meant to rebuild trust and redirect attention to the film's creative strengths. But her independent streak clashed with the carefully crafted corporate script. On her platforms, she continued to speak freely, often proudly insisting she wouldn't bend her views to fit anyone's narrative. That kind of authenticity might have been admirable in another context, but in this case, it fed the flames. Critics accused her of talking down to loyal Disney fans. Supporters praised her for standing her ground. Either way, the focus shifted from the film to the friction between star and studio, between message and market. As concerns about the film's performance mounted, insiders whispered that Disney executives were getting increasingly concerned.
Right? So she would like to also enjoy the privilege of making sure that you're going to come to theaters to keep her relationships with the executives that give her the jobs that she never has touched her own door handles. Good. She wants to manage those relationships. So she's now asking you to accept her lame-ass apology.
Bob Iger, freshly returned to steer the ship, was known for his ability to manage crises. But here, the studio looked directionless. Mixed messaging, uncoordinated interviews, and rumors of cast tension gave the impression that no one was in control. The live meltdown on The View became the most glaring symbol of this breakdown. Disney had hoped the show would be a safe space for Zegler to connect with mainstream viewers and reassure the fan base. But things didn't go as planned. Behind the scenes, Disney reportedly gave producers a strict set of talking points, safe subjects, approved messaging, and topics to avoid. But once the cameras rolled, it became obvious Zegler had no interest in sticking to the script. She veered into political territory, disregarded the studio's guardrails, and dismissed the core themes of the original film. Attempts by the hosts to redirect her failed. The segment spiraled quickly, with visible tension on screen. Frantic gestures off-camera, attempts to cut the feed, nothing worked. Eventually, Zegler was escorted off set, and the broadcast abruptly cut to commercial.
This thing was a disaster. It only made $43 million at the box office, which is really bad for a movie like this. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but I want to tell you, Cinderella, which was a number of years ago, don't forget how much inflation has happened.
The most chaotic parts were never aired, but clips and eyewitness accounts flooded the internet. The meltdown became a viral spectacle overnight. Joe Rogan labeled it a PR nightmare. A live implosion visible to millions was more than just a bad moment. It was a death sentence for the film's credibility. In a digital age where perception is everything, the meltdown became the only thing anyone remembered about Snow White. Critics said Zegler had tanked the film with her lack of discipline. Her defenders argued she was being punished for speaking her truth. But regardless of where people stood, the attention wasn't on the movie anymore. It was on the scandal, and it swallowed the entire production. Even Gal Gadot, cast in a marquee role, couldn't save it. Her involvement was meant to add star power and credibility. But as the meltdown narrative grew, Gadot faded into the background. Rogan pointed out rumors of behind-the-scenes friction between the two leads.
So did you go directly from West Side? Like, did you have to audition for Snow White, or like, oh, they saw you in West Side Story, they're like, you're Snow White?
West Side Story was kind of nowhere near coming out. We were about like 6 months away from release, and no footage had been seen.
Allegations that Zegler had made offhand remarks about Gadot's political views. Whether true or not, the rumors added to the sense of dysfunction. Gadot kept her distance, issuing bland promotional statements and avoiding controversy. Some believed she was protecting her brand, but the once promising synergy between leads evaporated, replaced by a quiet, awkward disconnection. Online, the backlash grew savage. Hashtags like #NotMySnowWhite took over. Parents avoided the film. Critics panned it before they saw it. Opening weekend numbers tanked. Despite Disney's massive promotional push, the film fell below even the lowest projections. AMC, expecting a family-friendly juggernaut, was instead stuck with ghost town auditoriums. Families chose other movies or simply stayed away. The film wasn't just underperforming, it was a commercial liability. That's when AMC made the call. Normally, a Disney title gets a guaranteed run, but Snow White had become a black hole.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Theaters were losing money with every screening. Headlines had become too toxic to ignore. In an unprecedented move, AMC pulled the film outright. The timeline varied across regions, but it didn't take long for the message to go out across official channels. The nation's biggest theater chain was done with Snow White. Executives at AMC confirmed what insiders had already guessed. Poor performance made continuing impossible. Local managers had reportedly begged corporate to drop it. citing rows of empty seats and customers actively mocking the poster in the lobby. With public perception in freefall, the decision became inevitable. Some speculated that AMC's relationship with Disney might suffer, but others suggested Disney itself had quietly accepted the outcome. Better to retreat than prolong the embarrassment. Rogan called the decision a watershed, a moment that exposed the fragility of even Hollywood's most powerful partnerships. If Disney could get dropped by AMC over bad press, anything was possible. He emphasized that before the meltdown, there had been hope. Maybe some families would still show up. But once that interview aired, once those clips and memes spread, any curiosity vanished. The film had become a punchline, and it wasn't just a warning about PR gone wrong. It became a cautionary tale about how studios manage live interviews. Normally, everything is scripted, but The View wasn't. And once Zegler started speaking her mind, there was no reeling it back.
I think it's fair to say that no one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie. And yet, Christian, you've seen the movie, and it appears that the filmmakers cobbled together enough salvageable material to make the movie itself quite nice.
Disney's scramble to contain the damage only made things worse. To viewers, it felt like the studio was covering up instead of confronting the issue. People who weren't even interested in the movie started watching, just to see how much worse it could get. Bob Iger's leadership soon came under fire. He had inherited a mess, but critics argued Disney's confidence in its remake formula had bred complacency. They assumed the brand was enough. Snow White proved it wasn't. The meltdown didn't just fracture the PR machine, it exposed internal chaos. Reports emerged of even Disney insiders turning on the film. An anecdote about a producer's son posting critical comments about Zegler circulated widely. Whether orchestrated or not, it added to the image of a fractured company with no unified message. Unapologetically, Rachel Zegler stood her ground. She continued to speak out, refusing to conform to the traditional mold that Disney stars were expected to fit into. Her tone was unflinching, her language unapologetic. She wasn't going to play by the old rules, no matter how much backlash followed. To her supporters, this wasn't a flaw, it was courage. They argued that she was being scapegoated, held responsible for a film that had been riddled with structural problems long before a single interview aired.
Oh my God, well, when you get to wear Sandy Powell, first of all, insane. And then you get to be lit by Mandy Walker, and Nadia Stacey designed your hair and makeup. It's like the most incredible thing in the world. And then all of a sudden you open your eyes and you watch the playback, which I never do.
The writing, the tone, the drastic deviations from the original story, all of it had already alienated the core audience. Zegler's press tour meltdown, they claimed, was just the spark that ignited a fire Disney had unknowingly built for itself. Her defenders saw her as a casualty of a much larger system, one that failed to adapt to changing times, yet punished those who dared to speak freely within it. But by the time these defenses gained traction, the damage had already been done. The public wasn't discussing the film's cinematography, or the costumes, or even the performances. They weren't debating the soundtrack or the creative reinterpretation of the Evil Queen. They were locked in on one thing: the implosion, the controversy, the chaos. Whatever artistic merit the film may have had was drowned out by a tidal wave of bad press, reaction videos, commentary podcasts, and memes that spread faster than the official trailer ever had. The narrative had shifted completely, from a bold reimagining of a classic to a behind-the-scenes catastrophe playing out in real time. And once the internet moves on, there's no going back. AMC's final decision, to cut ties with Snow White entirely, became the indelible image burned into the entertainment world's memory. It wasn't just a scheduling decision. It was a public...
It was a really, really, really bad flop. Now, things I do for you guys. I went to Snow White over the weekend. I took my kids. I'll tell you, I'm not sure who was more bored.
Irreversible break with one of Hollywood's most powerful studios. That kind of split doesn't happen without consequences. It sent shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill underperforming release. It was a full-blown collapse, the kind that alters studio strategies and reshapes how projects are developed, marketed, and cast going forward. Joe Rogan articulated what many were already thinking. In decades past, Disney might have weathered the storm in silence, quietly pulling the film from theaters, shifting the narrative toward international markets, or cushioning the blow with a Disney Plus release. But those tactics no longer work. Not in a world where every misstep is clipped, reposted, and dissected across social media before the studio even has time to react. The meltdown didn't just damage the film, it redefined it. Snow White became a cautionary tale overnight, a textbook example of how quickly a legacy property can lose its cultural currency when the messaging falters, the cast goes rogue, and the audience feels disrespected.
Just last week, the media and the shill influencers were trying to do everything they could to save Snow White from being a complete and total flop in the box office, and they failed miserably. This movie is already a complete and total disaster, and it is so bad that now even the media has to admit.
It didn't matter if some critics found redeeming qualities in the film. It didn't matter if certain scenes were visually stunning, or if Gal Gadot's performance deserved praise. Once the scandal took over, all of that became irrelevant. The story had been hijacked, and it wasn't being told by Disney's PR team anymore. It was being written, line by line, by the court of public opinion. Even moviegoers who never planned to see the film now knew the name Rachel Zegler, not for her performance, but for her interview, not for her singing, but for her sound bites. And then came the memes. Late-night shows seized the opportunity, roasting Disney for letting the situation spiral. Social media turned Snow White into a viral punchline. Photoshopped images of deserted theaters circulated with captions like, "Here lies the fairest flop of them all." Twitter threads dissected the meltdown frame by frame, while TikTok creators reenacted the view moment with satirical flair. The phrase, "the day Snow White died," began trending, turning a once celebrated property into a meme-laden cautionary tale about arrogance, miscalculation, and corporate tone deafness. The damage was total. No public relations spin could undo what had happened. No late-arriving redemption arc could recast the film in a more favorable light.
Snow White, the toe-curlingly terrible live-action remake, has bombed so hard at the box office that even Paul Tassi had to admit it. It got $43 million, and there are very few ways to spin that.
Even a successful streaming release would come too late, buried beneath the weight of ridicule. The meltdown hadn't just overshadowed the movie, it had consumed it, devoured it, reduced it to a cultural footnote not for what it tried to be, but for everything it failed to understand about its own legacy, audience, and timing. And in the aftermath, one truth became crystal clear. Every studio, no matter how big, no matter how bankable, had just witnessed the speed at which a fairy tale can be shredded by a single moment of bad press. The lesson wasn't just about casting or marketing or even creative direction. It was about control, about how easily a studio can lose the narrative when sincerity and spectacle collide in the wrong way, at the wrong time, with the wrong audience. From this point forward, no one in Hollywood would forget what happened to Snow White. Because when a modern remake collapses under the weight of its own ambition, it doesn't just fall, it implodes, and the explosion echoes far beyond the box office.